It's Thursday, the 22nd of August, and welcome to the Edinburgh Fringe. Yes, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Scotland's capital city will very soon be returned to Scotland, but for now it belongs to the arts, it belongs to the festival, it belongs to the Fringe. Just a few interviews to go, but there's still a lot of shows out there for Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, some Mondays coming in there as well. So if you've got a favourite show, they don't all run through till Monday. Do check listings for details. And if you're looking for a few more ideas, well, later on I'll be speaking to Tim Benzie. He's got 2 shows on, so 2 ideas coming up. But we have the big shortlist from comedy is finally here. And before we get to that, let's talk about the Perriers. Well, the Edinburgh Comedy Awards, but it's the one that used to be the Perriers, and they're still getting all the advantage of sponsoring it for a little bit in the 80s. Anyway, the shortlist is out for the newcomers and for the established acts. Not quite established, because if you can sell at a 500-seater theatre or you've got your own TV show, you're not allowed to enter. But otherwise, it's fair game. 10 jury panel have went through and got the shortlist. 3 of those are members of the public. The other 7, I would note, are heavily biased towards old media, TV production, TV broadcast and print, as well as a couple of theatre critics in there as well. So there is going to be a bias in the list, as there are with any panel that are deciding on a shortlist. Of note, out of the shortlist there, we've got Amy Gledhill, we've got Catherine Boart, Chris Cantrell, Josh Gland, Natalie Palamides, likely winner there, Reuben Kay and Sarah Keyworth. As I said, I think Natalie's in with a good shout on that one, and Catherine Bohart we've had on the podcast 2 years ago. So there we are. But the big shortlist, the one of importance, are the Malcolm Hardee Awards, named after the anarchic legend that is Malcolm Hardee, who once at the Fringe, because the show next door to his show was too loud, he hired a tractor to drive through their stage. And they were quieter the next night. Malcolm was that kind of chap. Anyway, there is Comic Originality, which has a list there as well. We'll put a link back to all of these. Curiously enough, in there is somebody called Mark Dean Quinn, who we had on the podcast yesterday. But we have the most likely to win £1 million award. Finlay Christie, who we had on at the start of the Fringe run, is on that list. And if you want to know how accurate that £1 million prediction is, previous winners have included a certain Trevor Noah, who went on to do The Daily Show in America. But the one that I always look forward to, the one that I think really captures the spirit of the Fringe, is the Malcolm Hardee Cunning Stunt Award for originality and bravery in promoting a show. So, Hugh Davies in the shortlist there for tricking people using a mocked-up national press cover, suggesting that he had been cancelled. Luke Rollison for hiding 100 toilet rolls with his face on them in toilets around the bars where other performers were playing. Tom Tuck for performing at a different time and a different location every day, but only telling people on social media, so people had to follow him and engage and ask and be involved before they could actually get to go to the show. And finally, Tim Reeves for creating a pastiche brochure that satirises different kind of shows at the Fringe, slipping his own one in the middle. Prize is a cheap trophy. It's all about the taking part, even if you didn't know you were taking part. There we are. We'll have links back to Malcolm Hardee Awards and to the Perry Awards shortlist at the website, as always, edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com. In terms of interviews, as I said earlier, Tim Benzie is going to be joining us on the show today to talk about his 2 Fringe shows. The first is very much an analysis with a little bit of comic presentation in It's a Mystery. And the more cabaret show is Solve Along a Murder, She Wrote. Yes, he loves his cosy crime thrillers, but doesn't everyone, especially if your name is Kate, secretly love a mystery? We start with the rules of detective fiction before our talk turns to Agatha Christie and Dame Angela Lansbury. How you can do a solve-along show with an episode of television, and which episode do you choose and why? And the advantages of having two shows at the Fringe, where you know one of them is popular and it's going to sell tickets, and how much flexibility does that leave you for your second show? Joining me now on the show, Tim Benzie. Tim, I'm going to start with the most difficult question possible, but it's also one that I think will get us a very good handling on your chosen specialist field. Which is the right ending for the film Clue?
Oh my goodness me. So you've hit a bit of a raw nerve for me there, right? Because I've just read a book called 8 Detectives, which everyone has been raving about, which has kind of multiple alternative kind of endings to the mysteries, right? And the author in the book asserts in his ideas about the rules of detective fiction. This is a long answer, but it's a good one. That it doesn't really. There are always kind of multiple possibilities for any mystery novel, and you could interchange them, and readers don't really care. There's no such thing as like this ultimate one answer to a murder mystery, right? That there really is only one person, and I think that's utter nonsense, and I hate it. And I didn't like 8 Detectives for that reason. I'm sorry to the author, and it's fun about Clue that there's multiple endings. But as an avid reader of Agatha Christie, who's read all of her books before I was 14. I can tell you that I actually really love the idea that there is only ever one solution. So I loved Clue, but the multiple ending thing, I'm not such a fan. I like the sense of you finish an Agatha Christie and you're like, oh my God, it was only ever going to be them. It has to have been A, B or C who did the murder. So that's my long answer for that. But if you force me at gunpoint, it's the ending in which Mr. Green is exposed as a kind of homosexual government agent. Spoiler alert, but there's lots of different endings to Clue, so it's not a spoiler.
I think that's the here's what really happened ending. But I am sure we'll have people in the comments who are more knowledgeable and more avid followers of that. Tim, though, as you may have heard, knows a bit about crime fiction.
Yes.
Chosen specialist subject to mastermind then?
Yeah, Agatha Christie, the collected works, or the life of, probably. I'm slightly obsessed with Agatha Christie.
So, the two Fringe shows that you have this year, what are they? Yeah,
so the first one is It's a Mystery. It's a Mystery is my deep dive into why we love whodunits. It's a one-man show, and it's in the form of an investigating a murder mystery itself. So, for example, we go to the scene of the crime, so we talk about crime scene, but that's the where of a whodunit. So I discuss how whodunits are usually set in big cities or small villages or exotic locations. So we use that, and I'm investigating it with everybody. So, and that draws on my whole childhood of being obsessed with Agatha Christie and the why we love the form. So that's that. And then at 8 o'clock at night, I'm doing Solve Along a Murder, She Wrote, which is kind of my massive baby that I do all over the country all the time, which is a hosted screening of an episode of Murder, She Wrote. So we watch an entire episode, but very stoppy-starty, and we talk about the guest stars, and we have a fameometer and a suspiciometer, and it's very interactive and very silly, and I'm doing that at night.
It's almost like the Solve Along is sort of like the show that you make bank on. Like, you know that's going to fill up, and you can be a little bit more experimental in the other one. Would that be...
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think so. Solve Along a Murder, She Wrote, obviously, I do, when I go back to a venue a first, second or third or fourth time, I do a different episode each time, right? So I have a monthly residency at the Prince Charles Cinema in Leicester Square, and I do one almost every month. So I've actually done 36 episodes in total, and all of them, even though the show has a structure, every episode brings something different. Every episode has something ridiculous or a particular trope, or it might be set somewhere crazy like the world of horse racing. So I can talk about films about horse racing and all of that stuff. So it's a Solve Along is much more fast and loose and silly. Whereas It's a Mystery is kind of my more serious work, I guess. Although it is very funny, if I do say so myself. And then in the typical Fringe way, of course, it gets very sad. So it's all of those things. But yeah, it's a 50-minute show, but I'm doing a 70-minute version, and I'm starting to tour It's a Mystery at the end of this year, actually, already. So
So, for Murder, She Wrote, are you doing a different episode every night at the Fringe, or have you done a little bit more discipline?
This is a very good question, and I agonised over this. For this run, this year, I've done the same episode. I'll do it 21 times. It's Paint Me a Murder, which is a fantastic episode where the Jessica gets invited to the remote island hideaway, actually a house on the coast of California, to visit her painter friend and all of her other friends. And the painter is played by Cesar Romero, and Capucine is in it, and Robert Goulet. I mean, it's so camp, it can barely function. It's amazing. But last year I did Sing a Song of Murder for the whole run. But I wanted to do, I've done so many, I could have a wheel. I wanted to have a spinning wheel, and you could just decide on an episode randomly, and I would do that.
Have you done the Magnum crossover episode?
No, I bloody love those two, but there's two problems. One is I can't ever do a two-parter because it takes me 2 hours to talk about a 47-minute episode. And if I did a two-parter, I'd still be in the theatre from last night talking shit about it, right? So I've got to stop. The other thing is I don't have the rights to the Magnum episode, so I couldn't do it.
I'm intrigued by the fact you said you got the rights. How did that go? How did that happen?
Oh, I had to ask, which was nerve-wracking. It took me ages to find the right person to ask whether I could do it or not. And then they said, yeah. So I pay a license fee at the start of the year, and that's what I do. But don't ask me who or how. I'll never tell. None of your business.
There are so many touchstones that I have on Murder, She Wrote and Angela Lansbury. You probably have more. But the one that I always remember is how generous she was to her guest stars. You didn't ask Angela Lansbury while she was alive, did you?
No, as far as I know.
Because it does feel like the sort of thing where you go, of course, darling, of course, let me clear up the red tape for you.
No, as far as I know, sadly, I don't know whether Dame Angela Lansbury ever knew that I was doing this show or not. So I don't know. I would dearly hope that she would have loved it and that she would know how affectionate and loving it is, even though it's silly and funny. I have a few golden rules. I never, ever make fun of Jessica Fletcher or Angela Lansbury. Ever. I make fun of lots of other stuff. The ridiculous lack of care paid to crime scenes, the hairdos, all of that stuff. But yeah, not Angela.
If you could have done any episode with her in the audience, which Murder, She Wrote episode would you have chosen?
It would be Sing a Song of Murder, because that's the episode in which she plays her identical twin cousin Emma. And she sings during that episode. She sings Goodbye Little Yellow Bird. And when that episode first aired in 1985, I was 15, and I said, Mum, Dad, she sings this in The Picture of Dorian Gray. Right, which is true. And then I joke in the show that some years later when I came out to them, they were surprised. But during the show, I point this out and tell this story, and I show a clip from The Picture of Dorian Gray with her age 20, I think, singing this song briefly in that movie. So that would be the one, because it really shows her off.
Where does Murder, She Wrote then sit in the pantheon of great detectives?
Well, I think it's a curious one, right? Because when it started, they said she was going to be a mix of Agatha Christie and Miss Marple. The producers said that, and I don't think Agatha Christie Limited were too happy about that, but that's what they said. And it was before, I think Marple maybe had come, I don't know when Marple came out, but it was definitely before Poirot first aired. So when it came out, there was a total lack of cosy crime in that structure on television. There was nothing really exactly like it. So, and in terms of volume of cases solved, she's pretty prolific. I think someone tried to say she's the most successful, she solved the more cases. I don't think that's true. I think Nancy Drew books, and I think there are other fictional detectives who've solved more cases. But there were more than 3 times as many episodes of Miss Marple of Murder, She Wrote than Columbo. Just to put it into perspective, it went for 12 years and 4 telemovies. It was enormous. So I think in terms of great fictional detectives, it depends on the genre, obviously, but she was certainly busier than Miss Marple, say. But, it's hard to say. Also, you've got to understand, murder mystery TV shows are different to the books, right? So there's 47 minutes is not a long time to set up a world, have new suspects, have someone falsely accused and then exonerated, have an epiphany, right? So there's usually only a couple of clues, maybe 3 in a Murder Trade episode that will give you the answer. Whereas in an Agatha Christie book, it's much more complicated. So arguably Marple and Poirot are better detectives because they're unravelling a more complicated case. I don't know. You're asking me to choose between my children. What are you doing?
I am being that very gentle, subtle, quiet, hold on a second. Rather like a detective who's now living out in Los Angeles and driving a Talbot car. You talk a lot about whodunits.
Yes.
Columbo wasn't a whodunit, but he does feature in your show.
Yeah, he does a bit. So I talk about him in It's a Mystery because when the golden age of detective fiction happened, roughly between 1920 and 1950, these were incredible. There were an incredible amount of these books out, and authors like Marjorie Allingham, who's now like kind of a bit forgotten. People forget that she was kind of a rival to Agatha Christie. People were reading her a lot. There were lots of these books, and so there were a lot of stories, and they were trying to come up with new ways of doing mysteries. So that form of Columbo, which is called a how catch 'em, not a whodunit, that was invented during that period, right? They were trying to find new ways to keep readers interested. Yeah, I mean, I'm not such a fan of Columbo. I love Peter Falk and I love the character and he's adorable and I could watch him. He's just so watchable. But I prefer my mystery to be solved at the end and I prefer not knowing until the end. I really find that the key joy for me is the thrill of them saying, oh, this is what happened and it's been right in front of you the whole time and you've missed it. I think in Murder, She Wrote, the episode Murder Takes the It's phenomenal. I mean, this episode is amazing because it's widely considered to be the best Murder, She Wrote episode. I had a kind of knockout tournament via email and during COVID where I had 36 episodes pitched against each other. And I said at the beginning, Murder Takes the Bus is going to win this. And I put it out to the fans and that's what won. It's the only episode I do with Solve Along where audiences regularly fail to solve the mystery. In fact, it's the only one they fail to solve it, right? Which is amazing. In terms of Agatha Christie, the murder of Roger Ackroyd, surely. But I can't say why. But if you haven't read it, read it. Do not try to watch any TV adaptation of it. It only works as a novel. Five Little Pigs is the same. Five Little Pigs is amazing. Only works as a novel. But I can't tell you why it only works as a novel.
Why is Christie still so impressive and so popular and so loved?
Well, you know what? It's funny because since I decided I was going to write It's a Mystery and talk about my love of cosy crime, what I realised was that when I was a teenager, my mum kept trying to push like Ngaio Marsh and other books onto me, right? Dorothy L. Sayers. And I just refused. I was like a teenager and I was like, no, it's only Agatha Christie. I had this weird literary monogamous relationship with Agatha Christie, right? So I only read her books. So I thought, oh my God, I mean, I had read some in the past, other books, but I thought I need to bone up on this, and so I've now read quite widely. I've read like a Ngaio Marsh and a John Dixon Carr, and really great authors, and they're so funny. The big thing I always notice about them is like almost bar none, they're funny, right? So that's interesting, but and Agatha Christie is not that funny. Right, this is not a quality of her books that I notice. Hercule Poirot is occasionally mildly amusing, like sometimes accidentally, but what none of them have is Agatha Christie was really good at the plots and the twists. Oh my God! I mean, she was the master of misdirection and like getting you to believe something. I mean, I read a great article about her that said that the joy of Agatha Christie is that sometimes she tells you who the murderer is in the first 10 pages. She tells you, and then she spends 190 pages talking you out of it. And you're talked out of it, but she's told you at the beginning. It's unreal. So she's and also the fact that she always follows the rule that all clues must be plainly stated. Like everything is told to you, everything. So you can work it out. But sometimes she'll tell you something and then a gun will go off. Bang, a gun. Oh, what? Hang on, something's happening over there. So she's just told you, but then an event happens and you're distracted and you go over there and you forget it. But she's told you.
Did you ever get ahead of Agatha Christie and get it right when you were reading?
Once. 66 novels, one book I solved, which was Sleeping Murder, Miss Marple's Last Case. I don't know how. I just read it and went, oh my God. And there's no spoilers on this podcast, by the way. It's such and such, right? And I don't know why, but I worked it out.
That changed the reading experience, because that must have been the first time, the only time that you've been able to read knowing but not having already read.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it as much, to be honest. I much prefer being... It definitely... I mean, I remember almost nothing about that book except the fact that I solved it. It's dumped out of my memory because I didn't enjoy it. I was like, it's so weird because I like being a show-off and I like knowing things and I like considering myself to be a bit smart, right? So why on earth I get a pleasure out of books in which it basically shows me up to be stupid or someone else is cleverer than me? I must be some kind of intellectual masochist or something. There's some kind of weird... I don't know, BDSM relationship going on in my mind.
I've got to be fair. I was just going to go, you appreciate the power of a strong woman. But if you want to call it that, then...
No. That could be it as well. I do appreciate... I mean, my God, please. I'm obsessed with female-driven narratives.
The shows himself, which showcase all of this knowledge in a lovely atmosphere, when are they on?
So It's a Mystery is on at 1:40. The Space at Surgeons Hall in Theatre 2. So if you go to Surgeons Hall just off Southbridge, and that's running till Saturday. The last show is on Saturday afternoon. And Solve Long and Murder Road is at 8:15 at Symposium Hall. That's also at the Space, also around Surgeons Quarter. And that runs until Saturday night. It's my last night as well. But after that, if you go to solvealongamurdershewrote.com, the world's longest URL, ridiculous, it lists all my upcoming dates. It also always lists what episode I'm doing at a particular venue. So if you've seen Paint Me a Murder and I'm coming to a venue near you, you can see whether it's a different one, because it's always fun to see a different one, right? I have fangelers, I call them, who come to every show and come dressed up, which is amazing. And It's a Mystery... it's also starting to tour as well. Those dates will be on Solve Along, but I've also got another website, itsamystery.co.uk, that it's got stuff about that, reviews and all of that stuff. So the dates are starting to grow for that one as well.
EdinburghFringe.thepodcastcorner.com. All the links are up there. Tim, it's a delight. It's a wonderful format. It's a wonderful tribute. Thanks for bringing it to the Fringe.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Great to talk to you.
Tim Benzie there with his two shows, Solve Along and Murder, She Wrote, which plays at the Space Symposium Hall at 8:15 through to the 24th. And It's a Mystery, also playing at the Space, but this time at the Surgeons Hall venue, playing in the afternoon 1:40 through to the 24th as well. Links to those back at the website, as well as links to the Malcolm Hardee shortlist and Perrier shortlist as well. As always, the usual link, like, love, share, subscribe, please. But also, please consider that for all the acts and performers you see at the Fringe as well. It's much easier now to stay in touch with your favourite acts, to find out if they're going to be visiting soon, to find out if they've got albums or music or presentations or YouTubes or live streams and all of that. You can stay in touch, stay in contact and support them throughout the year, not just by buying a ticket in August. So find their websites, their social medias, link, like, love, share and subscribe to them as well. But for now, the curtain is not yet coming down on the Fringe. We still have 4 full nights to go, and whatever's happening on Monday as well. There's a lot of Fringe. I'm going to Edinburgh to find it, and maybe I'll catch you there or beyond. But for now, ta-ra. You've been listening to the Edinburgh Fringe Show, hosted by Ewan Spence, produced by Spence Media and Radio 6 International. Listen to more at edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com.